Welcome to this presentation on new features in Therefore 2022 or version 27 for Therefore Online. My name is Jennifer Schmidt and I'll be guiding you through all of these great new enhancements. So our agenda for today is first we'll cover some general performance enhancements, followed by changes to the dynamic web viewer, then Therefore Smart Capture, and finally some other changes. General performance enhancements. So we've ensured that Therefore 2022 is compatible with Windows 11, Windows Server 2022, ODBC driver version 17.8, Microsoft Office 2021, Kofax Power PDF v4.1, and we've also added support for HelloSign and SignSmart e-signatures, and now we also offer support for Thai language in the user interface. We've also increased the performance of Therefore. This means that we've made significant improvements in the search performance for queries that return large data sets. So basically this cuts down long search times to a matter of seconds. And this is configurable for on-premise systems, and it's auto-managed in Therefore Online for optimal performance. So this means our Therefore Online customers do not need to do anything to benefit from this enhancement. Therefore will manage it for you and ensure that the search results do not take a long time, regardless of how many queries or how many data sets there are. We have efficient conversion server scaling, which results in a 5-fold performance for full text OCR. This means that even large batches of documents are indexed quickly. So for those of you who like to use OCR to find documents, this new enhancement will ensure that it's working faster than ever before. And we've also increased the speed of import and export actions and added support for exporting retention policies, dashboards, and using category as a reference table. So this is great for those of you who are configuring Therefore and maybe importing it onto another system, or you have certain configurations that you want to share from one system to another. You will notice this right away. This is a fantastic enhancement that will really make importing and exporting configurations much faster and easier than before. I especially love using category as a reference table. A lot of us like to do that, especially with demos, so this is going to be fantastic. This brings me then to the next big feature, which is the dynamic web viewer. So many of you are familiar with the dynamic web viewer. This was released a couple of years ago, and we've been enhancing it year after year. The biggest enhancement that we have this year is that dashboards can be shared with users or groups in the company. So previously, we saw dashboards are available, and previously you could just make a dashboard for yourself and manage it and look at it and change the tiles. Now, you can create a dashboard, or an admin can create a dashboard and share it with certain users or groups. So what we have here is we've got my personal dashboard where I have full control. Then the admin has created 3 other dashboards that are shared. So here we've got the laboratory dashboard. And as you can see here, there's this new manage dashboard command, and the laboratory is shared with people in the laboratory group. We've even created a new set of permissions in the solution designer specifically for managing dashboards. So it's possible to give certain users or groups the manage dashboard permission so that they can share it accordingly. And what we see here, just an illustration of how this could be used. We've got Ben Smith here, who is the power user. He can share dashboards, so he creates a dashboard for everybody, as well as a dashboard for the laboratory group, and then a dashboard for the radiology group. So people in the laboratory group can only see the laboratory dashboard, and people in the radiology group can only see the radiology group, as well as the everybody dashboard, and then a personal dashboard if they like. Users can hide or unhide dashboards if they like, but any changes that they make to their own personal view does not affect the global view. And then they also have full control over their own personal dashboard like they've had previously. So this is great because it allows dashboards to be pushed out to the entire organization. It's a great way to share information and make sure that information from a dashboard is getting across to the entire company. You can also add links or drop zones, if you like. So it's a really neat feature, very easy to set up and configure. And as you know, dashboards are just one of the easiest ways to get good reports in. Therefore, anyone can learn how to do a report with the dynamic web viewer, and this just makes it all the better. Other enhancements in the dynamic web viewer are that we've now added an option to view specific versions of a document. So this is the document history. As you can see in the screenshot here, I'm looking at a document which is an image, and you can see the current version has this thick border around it, and I can also see previous versions as well. And so I can go through and look at previous versions of the document as well in the web viewer. There's also access to all linked objects, so I can see any cases, workflows, or tasks that are linked to a certain document. I've also got the option to open the document in a new tab and have multiple documents on screen at the same time. So that's really convenient as well. So you can see here there's this action tab now, and one of those actions is to open it up in a new tab. So I can have multiple different documents open at the same time. Very, very convenient. And we also have a document preview in the case document panel. So if I have a case open, I'll be able to see all of the document previews in the case. Excel documents are now rendered better than before. So if I've got an Excel document with tabs, I can click through all the tabs and see what's inside them. That concludes the section on the dynamic web viewer. Let's move on to Therefore Smart Capture. So Therefore Smart Capture was introduced last year, and it is an AI-based invoice recognition service. So it can recognize invoices and other types of financial accounting documents, like a purchase order, for example. In previous versions, Smart Capture required a user to manually verify if the data it recognized was correct. Starting with Therefore 2022, we now have the ability to enable automation. This means you can skip manual verification. Saving and indexing invoices can be done without any human labor, saving time and money. All you have to do is save the invoice to Smart Capture. So this could be done using the content connector, for example. And then Smart Capture is enabled. It will recognize the index values. If Smart Capture is confident that the values it recognized is correct, it will be saved to the final category without any human labor whatsoever. The way it works is that if you open up Smart Capture, we have new settings where you can set the confidence level. So this means if you want to be sure that Smart Capture only skips manual verification when it is certain that the values are correct, you can set a confidence level of 100%, or you could send it at 80%, whatever it may be. In addition, you can also set different confidence levels for different index data. This means that if you have index data such as an address where it's not as critical that it's 100% correct, you could set it at a lower level, maybe at 40%, whereas everything else could be at a much higher level, 80 to 100%. So very, very, very convenient. I think you guys are going to really love this, save you a lot of time, and make this part of the invoice process so much faster and easier. Moving on to the next enhancement, which is data matching. So the idea about this feature is that a lot of customers have supplier databases, and this means that they have a set list of suppliers that they work with, and they want Smart Capture to be able to match the supplier from the invoice to the supplier in their database. And this can help improve the accuracy of the data saved to Therefore. So what you do is you upload the supplier database to Smart Capture, and then when you start going through the Smart Capture process, you can actually then ask Smart Capture to do a vendor ID match. And that's based on certain data in the invoice, such as an address maybe, or a vendor name, something like that. And you can choose what criteria is used to match the vendor. And this can also be used in conjunction. And again, this is the way just to make sure that the data that's being saved to Therefore is really accurate. And also it can save you time as well. So maybe we've got some customers here that will be interested in using this feature. And finally, we now have the ability to customize a schema. What does that mean? What is a schema? A schema is the fields that are available to Smart Capture. They include things like, invoice type, invoice name, customer ID, due date, tax, value-added tax, maybe a bank code, IBAN number, something like that. And of course, depending on where you are in the world and what type of accounting needs you have, the schema will differ. Now, in the past, we did not have the ability to customize a schema. We had a few different schemas that were available depending on the region. And this ensured that the default currency, for example, was customized to this country that you're in. However, of course, we didn't include everything. Now, because the custom schema is possible, you can change the words in the schema, you can change the fields in the schema, you can add approvers, you can change the default currency, things like that, so that the fields in Smart Capture really match your accounting needs. One common example that we got a lot was in Australia. Australia does not use value-added tax. They use GST, which is general sales tax. So for people in Australia, this was really important because they want Smart Capture to be talking about GST rather than VAT, value-added tax, like we have here in Europe. So once again, this is just another way that you can use Smart Capture in a way that makes it more customized to your specific needs. One thing I will say is if you're doing huge changes on schema customization, it will take Smart Capture a while to learn these changes. And so you may not be able to use the automation feature if huge changes have been made, of course. But for the most part, this should be very smooth and you should be able to get a lot of really good use out of it. That is the biggest change with Smart Capture. Let's move on to some other changes. We now have changes to authentication and single sign-in. It's now possible to use ADFS with OpenID Connect to connect to Therefore, and local users can log in with a UPN name such as jennifer.schmidt at therefore.net. Therefore Workflow has gone through a lot of enhancements. We can now export documents to an SFTP folder using the Workflow export task. We can convert documents to an image PDF with the convert document task. So the reason why that feature was made, an image PDF, is that a lot of customers were using the annotate tool to draw black over documents that they wished to redact. Then they exported those documents as a PDF. But in that case, the annotations could be removed in the PDF editor, and people were able to see then the text that had been redacted. Now, if you convert to image PDF, the annotation is included as part of the image and cannot be removed. So it's a much more secure way of doing text redaction. It's also possible to customize the size of stamps used in annotations. You can set the size of the stamp in millimeters. In the Therefore Solution Designer, we've added a new setting, max rows to fetch from the DB, which controls the results set for large. This helps improve the general performance of the Therefore system. Indexing profiles, we can now define the behavior of the auto-append function, which allows users to either keep existing index values or overwrite index values. So previously, this was something that was set by Therefore depending on what application you were using, and now it's something that the user can really set for themselves to tell the Therefore system what should happen if I'm importing a document that has the same index values as another document that's already in Therefore. And in Therefore Online, users can sign PDFs with custom certificates. Now let's move on to the demo. Right, now we're doing a demo of the new features in Therefore version 2022. The first feature I'd like to show you are the changes to the dynamic web viewer. When you open up the dynamic web viewer, you'll have the options here to see the documents, to see your processes, your workflows, and this icon here is the dashboard icon. So as you can see here, I'm logged in with an admin account, and I have 4 dashboards that are visible. The first one here is my personal dashboard. This is the one that I have full control over. The other ones I've made available to other groups in my company. I have a laboratory dashboard that's only available to people who are in the laboratory group. an all dashboard, which is available to everyone in the company, as well as a radiology dashboard. I can manage dashboards, add new ones, and delete ones using the Manage and Create Dashboards command here at the top. If I click it, I can add a new dashboard for myself, and I can also manage dashboards here using the list. So if I unhide a dashboard, I won't see it, and I can also unshare a dashboard as well, in which case the radiology group would no longer be able to see this dashboard. If I were to log in with other user accounts, I could show you that users can only see dashboards for which they have permissions. This means that members who are in the laboratory group can only see the For All dashboard as well as the laboratory dashboard, and people in the radiology group can only see the radiology group and the All dashboard. How does this work? Well, it's managed using role-based security, which I'll show you in the Solution Designer right now. So when we open up the Therefore Security settings under Users and Groups, you can see that we have a couple of different groups. We have a group called Chemistry, which is for the laboratory, GP, which is the admin, and Radiology. And we also have a new user role, which is Manage Dashboards right here. So using this new role, I can give people permission to manage dashboards, meaning to share dashboards with others. Permissions are also set under the dashboards node right here. And you can see we have folders. So laboratory security settings has people in the chemistry group can read, but they cannot administer. Similarly, in the radiology group, radiology can read, but they also cannot administer. So only administrators are the ones who can administrate these dashboards. And then of course there's the For All dashboard as well, for which everyone in the company has writer roles, but only the administrator is the one who can be an administrator for that dashboard. And of course we can now also export the dashboards, meaning that you can configure a dashboard on one system and then export it to another system. It's really convenient, and I think you'll get a lot of use out of it. Moving on to some other features in the Dynamic Web Viewer. Let's go back to repository. And you can see here, made a lot of changes as you will recall. So let me find a document. So here we have a document, and you can see we already have a document preview. So open the document. And you'll notice here under the Actions pane that we have a linked objects pane, so you can see any documents or objects that are linked. In this case, it's a workflow that's linked. And we also have a document history, so I can scroll through to see previous versions of a document. The current version is indicated by this nice thick black border. And then I can open it in a new tab, and that allows me to have multiple documents open for viewing at the same time, which is very convenient. Yeah. So that concludes the new features in the Dynamic Web Viewer. Let me open up the Solution Designer once more to show you changes with Smart Capture. So as previously mentioned, Smart Capture has 3 new changes. The first one is that automation has been fully enabled. That means that we have a new Smart Capture process, as you can see here. What happens in this process is Smart Capture is started when the document is saved to the category. It's then uploaded to the Smart Capture recognition service, and Smart Capture will then recognize the values on the invoice. Then 2 things can happen. Either Smart Capture is able to recognize everything on the invoice with a high degree of confidence, in which case the invoice will then be moved to the final storage category here. If there are problems with the invoice and certain values cannot be recognized, the other path will be taken, in which case a user will be asked to review the values, and then the invoice will be moved to the final category, or if it was a faulty document, for example, if it was an advertisement, it will be deleted. and that is the new Smart Capture process. Smart Capture settings, right click on the Smart Capture node and select settings. And what you'll notice is that under automation, we have a new tab, and there's a new box called Enable Automation. If you check Enable Automation, the document will then be sent down the new workflow process, and Smart Capture will try to fully automate the recognition process. You can set a document confidence level. This indicates how confident does Smart Capture need to be that the recognized values were correct in order to skip manual verification. In my example, I've set it at 80%, but you're also able to set separate values for different index fields. So for example, if you want to be 100% sure that the amount due is correct, you can set it to 100%. The minimum confidence level is 30%. So you can set different confidence levels for each one of these fields. We also have created data matching. And so this means that you can upload vendor data from a reference table and therefore to Smart Capture. And that makes it much simpler and smoother, because then Smart Capture will automatically try to match the vendor data from the invoice to the vendor information in Smart Capture as the invoice is being processed. So that makes it a lot faster and smoother and less error prone. And finally, we also have the ability to use schema customization. So what is a schema? A schema, as you see here, are all the fields that Smart Capture can use. A schema consists of things like the invoice type, the vocabulary used for certain accounting terms, and also the default currency, perhaps, in terms such as what is tax called in the country. So for example, here in Europe, our tax is known as, we have value added tax, VAT. However, other countries in the world don't have value added tax, they have something called GST, general sales tax. So someone might want to customize the schema and call it VAT or GST instead. And that's just an example of how the schema could be customized. To customize the schema, simply click the download schema button, make the changes, and then upload it. Very, very simple. You'll also notice that we have a new retention period. This retention period refers to how long the invoice will be stored in the Smart Capture engine. It has nothing to do with how long the document will be stored in. Therefore, these are two separate things, right? So always remember, the document retention is specifically for document retention within Smart Capture. We recommend that the document retention should be at least 365 days, because Smart Capture is able to learn from all the documents that it processes. If you delete the documents from Smart Capture too soon, Smart Capture won't have an opportunity to learn, which could impede its ability to recognize values in the future. All right, so now I'm going to give you a quick demo of automation with Smart Capture. So previously I showed you where the automation settings can be configured. I have enabled automation, and now I'm going to start a workflow for one of these invoices here. So let's send it to the Smart Capture process. Now I'll show you my Smart Capture inbox, all instances. And so we've got another one here. And right now it's in process. So I'll wait a few seconds until Smart Capture has recognized this invoice and uploaded it. So the interesting thing about the automation process is that it's very smart. It really only will fully automate the workflow if it's actually very confident that the fields it recognized are correct. Another thing to keep in mind is if there are fields in the schema that do not exist on the invoice, you can also not skip automation, because in that case, Smart Capture will not be certain if those fields were correct or not, because of course they'll be blank. It's always really good to make sure that if you want to enable automation, that the fields in your schema actually match the types of fields that are on your invoice. And there you go, I just refreshed and workflow process 98 has now ended. So let's go look at the workflow history here. And you can see it started, it was sent to Smart Capture. Smart Capture recognized the values, and it was very confident of all the extracted values, and it has moved it to the final storage category, and there was no user review at all. And that's how the automation works. So you can see it's very simple to use. Before I go, I wanted to also shout out that we have e-learning available. Our e-learning course for Therefore 2022 is up and ready to go. We have very detailed information exactly how to configure the automation, data matching, schema customization, retention, the dynamic web viewer, and other enhancements. And you can also download the package, which means you can download the new Smart Capture workflow directly from the e-learning right here. Keep in mind that if you do want to use Smart Capture, you will need to have Smart Capture licensed, and your system will need to be updated to version 2022 or version 27. All right, that concludes my demo. Thank you so much. Have a great day.